I want to back up because like what I always find is that a closing problem, if you have an issue with closing or if there's a big drop off rate there, it's almost always a discovery problem. And it sounds like you guys always have. I see some smiles. Have y'all been talking about this?
On Monday, Jesse kind of prompted us as to what you might say about this problem. And he said, yeah, guaranteed say it's got something to do with the discovery.
100%, it just is. I think about this all the time, and I think about like, there's always tactics you can do at each step of or each stage of the process that can help improve. But like the root is really that discovery call, or those conversations you're having, just about their business, really that seeking to understand. So, you guys, you got the leads coming in, you're moving through that process. And so you when you think like that, you're hearing all the right things you want to hear to fit your solution into their problems and being able to sell it. But we got to sort of zoom out during that process. So it's typically not just what you're asking or what you're saying, but it's like, how do we zoom out and get a better view of their business and then try to fit in our solution into solving not only the immediate pain that we solve, but like, how does that align with their greater business purpose and, agenda priorities, right? Does that make sense? That's exactly what you want. I'll say this is that, as you start going through those, as we talked about, trying to zoom out, as we start going through really targeting why you and that prospect is having that conversation, zoom out for just a bit and just how do we understand where this fits in everything else that they're doing, right? So of course they want to make more money. Like, of course they want new leads. Of course, all that stuff is in their head as a business owner that they want these things to happen. But like, have you seen the list of the other shit that they got to do? Right. So it's like, just anyone. I mean, that's all of us, right? We've all got our priorities and we've all got life coming at us and that noise that's happening. So just taking a step back and just saying, hey, what else is on your plate at this point? And so now you get them talking because they're like, you know what, nothing else. I've got to fix this problem. Now you got someone that's motivated. Now you've got someone that is ready to do this. Now, when they talked about your pain, you can tie that together. But if they start talking about like 5 other things, right? Like, okay, well, let's ask some questions around that. Like, tell me how, what's the timeline on that? What have you been doing on that project? How much time is that taking you? Where does this fit in that list of priorities? So you're hitting the nail on the head with the discovery, right? You're understanding their pain so you can, and what their goals are so you can build that business case. You're trying to understand their motivation. You've got the timeline. All those things are fitting into place. It's just like, if we're not closing, it's because there's other things that they have that are more important to them. And that's nothing. You could have wowed them through your presentation and everything, but like, where do you fit on their list, right? So what I'll say is this, but that gives you opportunity, right? That gives you opportunity to move past just, I'm selling this thing and this is what I'm a go-to for, but to really be that, business consultant to their business. So you start hearing these things. And what's cool about what y'all do is you're working with people across industries, right? It's not just one industry. So now you become more than just an expert on like lead generation, but when you're talking to, an architect firm or whatever, and say, hey, I talked to Bob's architect firm the other day, and they were dealing with some of the same issues you are with this, and this is how they handled it. Now, like you're getting past, you're moving that barrier of like, buyer seller, right? And whether that has it, and that's where when we talk about leading with empathy with sales, that's what it is. It's not just saying, oh, I commiserate with you on the shit that we're going through right now, and that's tough. It's saying, what is it that you're going through? Because we're going through stuff. I'm talking to a bunch of people that's doing stuff. Let me make these connections happen. Having that conversation, I'm drawing back on those other conversations. Even they know they don't necessarily tie directly to what we're doing. I want to bring those up. I want to like show them that like I've been listening and I care more than just like getting you to write a check. It's disarming. In that case is I would, during that discovery phase, if they are saying, hey, I've got these, other things going on, like I'm going to say, okay, like let's map this out. When do you see that being done? Okay. So I want to make sure that when we present the solution, it's relevant to that point in time and what you're dealing with your business at that point. So how about we loop back around? You're saying it's going to be 6 weeks before you finish these other 2 projects? Let's put some time on the calendar right now, 5 weeks from now or 6 weeks from now, so that we can really dive into it. So I'm not going to give them a demo. I'm not going to give them a proposal. I'm going to stop it right there. And then what am I going to do? I'm going to work it like an account, right? I'm not going to work it as an opportunity. I'm going to work it as an account, which means that I'm still going to be doing outreach. I'm going to be checking in. Hey, how are those 2 projects going? I was just talking to XYZ guy, and he was doing this, and whatever it may be. I thought of you, right? So I'm going to have those touch points over that time period. And then at that 6-week point, I'm going to go in for that closing, that next meeting. Hey, you said you'd be finished. Let's set up this time. What are your thoughts on next Thursday at 5? I'd rather close that down after an hour than spending 6 hours working on this project, delivering a presentation, doing follow-up, and then I don't hear back from them because I missed the boat. So that's why that's the difference, right? Right there illustrates the difference between why it's a discovery problem when you're not closing as opposed to just a tactics and strategies problem at the end, right? It's because if you're getting to closing, you've wasted however long it is 5 hours, let's say, 6 hours, 10 hours, putting together a solution, following up with them, communicating with them, and then you got nothing. And then what you're doing? What are you doing? You're just chasing. You're just, hey, buddy, it's been a while since we last talked. We were able to do this for you. Why aren't you picking up the phone? Pick up. It's one of those situations, right?
Yeah.
And we want to avoid that because that's when you lose credibility. That's when you just become another guy and you build a lot more credibility. Again, you're thinking like big picture. I'm going to have a discovery. I'm going to share some value during that discovery. Hey, I'm talking to a lot of business owners. This is what they're dealing with. I'm curious how you're dealing with it. This guy said this. What are your thoughts there? Understanding that timeline and then just pulling back. I mean, when you take that away from them, right? Like you have the keys and then all of a sudden like they're ready to drive and you just pull that back and say, hey, now it's not the right time for you. Like they're going to go shit. Like I want that, and they might not be able to do it right then, but that's a deeper seed planted than if you just are that same sales guy that's just going through the robotic motions of a sales process, right? It's something. I mean, and that's okay. It happens. But if they're following along and just saying, the worst thing to me is that prospect that's just like, yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, that sounds great. Like just nodding their head through the entire process. What I want is a back and forth. Like, no, that doesn't make sense because that means they're thinking about it and like diving into it, or no, what about this? Or I did this in the past. Like I want those objections or those, I want to be challenged because I know how to navigate that. Now we're having a conversation again. We're going deeper than just that surface level, like pitch and then nodding heads.
So how do you structure your discoveries?
Yeah. So, I mean, anything's first and foremost, I'm going to have what I call a UFC. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Sandler selling?
No.
Okay. It's, you have spin selling, you have Sandler selling, you have Challenger sell, all that stuff. It's just one of those. My biggest takeaway from Sandler selling is the UFC, which is the upfront contract. And we kind of did it here, right? Like I almost do it in any time I have a meeting. I just want to it makes meetings go better, whether that's a sales meeting or just another type of meeting. But it's just, hey guys, I got us down for an hour. Are you still good on time? I want to make sure that no, I've only got 40 minutes because I've got this thing happening. Try to make sure that clear your plate. We're having a conversation right now. And then I want to say, hey, what I'm hoping to do is learn a little bit about your business. You obviously, this is why we're talking. We're a lead gen place. We're a marketing place. I want to learn a little bit about your business. I want to share a little bit about what you're doing. And then if it all makes sense, what I'd like to do is just spend the last 5 minutes just nailing down that next step. So if we're able to talk about X, Y, and Z, are you comfortable spending that next 5 minutes discussing our next meeting or what that next step is? Sure. So it's just really simple. Upfront contract, time, and this is sort of like after I built rapport, right? This isn't like how I open a meeting, but like after I built rapport. So time, expectations or agenda of the meeting, and then set up the close for the next step.